ethics and factions are being merged, potentially leaving room for internal politics rework. It's not confirmed, but in this dev diary, we'll be looking into those changes, as well as 2 lots of patch notes and a potential release date for 4.3. Let's get into it. Our next 4.3 experiment. Last week we were meant to get a dev diary, but they were ill. The plagues have passed. Now we'll be looking at a risky change coming to the 4.3 open beta relating to pop ethics and ethics drift. Mixed ethics within a pop group. Instead of splitting pop groups based on ethics, we're changing them so a pop group can have multiple ethics and factions simultaneously. This is a big change. With pop ethic percentage values to describe how they're split. This will simplify the ethic randomization logic and allow pop group ethic conversions to happen more reliably and more frequently. And it more importantly, will dramatically reduce the number of pop groups in the late game. I've loaded up my UNE late game save from the first series of the members only, and we have a lot of planets, more importantly pops, 858,000. This is leading to many groups, as you can see here. They're all effectively the same, like especially these 3 specialists have the exact same traits. We do have vocational genomics, so they're picking a random thing. And it's just creating a lot of different pop groups, and this is simulated across every species and planet. There's just a lot of pop groups going on, which when the game is sorting for stuff and checking for pops, they're looking at these pop groups. So having more of these means more lag. So in the first screenshot here, we can see the management tab of our planet shows which factions each pop group have joined and which ethics and factions are represented with them. So we have the human civilians. There's only one group, and it shows this group is made up of egalitarian and xenophile, I think, factions, as well as the ethics. This before could have been egalitarian, xenophile, etc. There could be lots of different groups. So you can see in each tab, they've been combined. So this is going to hopefully just reduce the pop lag even more than what this change in 4.0 did. And you can see that around 80% of this pop group are members of this faction in the progressive faction, and if you hovered over the xenophile, it would be 19.9. Then in the second screenshot, we're hovering over the egalitarian. These pops are currently following these ethics. Egalitarian, 1,300 of them at 67.8%, giving a certain amount of attraction, and then xenophile the same. This is actually easier to understand too, because the information for what the pop groups and the attraction are right there, which is quite nice. You can see that the attraction is more for egalitarian, so they're probably going to trend towards switching to egalitarian. And it's at a glance, so as well as improvements, it's gameplay improvements too. And then if we hold Alt here, you can see actually the breakdown. So we have a base attraction of 1 to egalitarian. Then you have a local attraction plus 50% and 100% from the governor and governing ethics attraction. And then there is a global attraction because you have fanatic egalitarian ethic from your authority and from the council. This has been in the game apparently the whole time. I never even cared or knew that you could view it. Again, gameplay improvements here. In addition to reducing the number of pop groups overall, pops should drift between ethics and factions better than before. That's really nice if you actually want to play around that. As it touches a wide number of systems, we consider it a risky change and would love to see the open beta find any issues with it. I'm sure there will be, but this is why I really love the open beta. This will unfortunately be a save-breaking change. Expect to push it to the open beta next week, currently targeting Tuesday. That is Tuesday the 3rd of March. As a reminder, we have a Cetus open beta rollback branch available with previous versions, so you'll have a little bit more time available to finish any games made on the current pre-ethics change build. So you've got the option to not do this change, as it's going to break it. If you are a modder, scopes, triggers, and effects have been adapted to match pop groups with multiple ethics, and we've added a couple of new triggers for you to use. So if your mod uses pop has ethic and pop group has ethic, your mod's going to break. Has ethic will continue to work, but will return true if even a single pop within the pop group is of that ethic, so it probably will still break your mod. We now have the has ethos and target, which will check if country or pop group ethos contains all ethics of the other target ethos, and pop ethic percentage. You can now do some maths, which is quite nice. Instead of it just being true or false, it can be more variable. On the bright side, it should prevent things like this from happening. What is even going on? Just ultra massive pops combining into lots of groups. Very nice. Now, what does this mean? Really, if you're a casual player, this doesn't really mean much. Your ethics and where your factions are going to change is going to be a bit better than before, as in they should change more frequently and things you do should affect them more. Got my theory hat on. This does open the doors for potential faction changes in internal politics. I'm just saying they're putting back end work into it with percentages to ethics and factions. Who knows? Who knows? Subscribe right now. Now, before we get on to the changes that are releasing today, we'll go over last week's because we did not cover it. A new feature feature. When multiple endgame crises are active in galaxy settings, endgame crises are now allowed to spawn 25 years after another crisis spawned, instead of being blocked while there is an active crisis. This means if you're trying to fight harder and harder crisis, you can't just keep the scraps of a crisis alive to delay the next one. Nice little change. I never really played like that because it's not in the spirit of the game, but it's cool that they can just spawn. And that does mean you can have multiple crises at once. If you're just sitting in a corner trying to survive, there's going to be potentially all of the crisis. Mercenary and Shroud Walker enclaves now require 100 naval capacity in the fleet. Used to be 50 fleet command, I believe. So this now actually benefits bioships too, because they grow up, have the same fleet capacity, but more naval capacity. So it's naval capacity, not fleet command. That's quite interesting. The Crisis Beacon espionage operation now looks for larger fleets than before. That means you could just punish people more. Reduce capital productivity tech to 5% efficiency per tier from 10. In the stream we did last week, this was playing on this, so that really did hurt. Just reducing numbers again. Reduce the faction production bonus from egalitarian ethics to 30%. Rest in peace, parliamentary systems. If you didn't know, it used to be 25%, 50%. So a 10% and a 20% nerf. Yikes. Infernal tank bans now begin with 3 additional generate districts. Other tank ban empires will convert 1 less farm into a generator. I think tank ban was really bad in the beta, so they're trying to fix it a little bit. With another change, remove the 30% automated workforce penalty that tank bans start with. However, they no longer begin with insights on assembly patterns. It's no longer needed to negate this penalty. Assembly patterns and construction templates now give tank bound 10% automation efficiency. So essentially you can get up to 120% total automated efficiency because you don't have the penalty. Aptitude have some big changes. Tradition that I literally never take, and maybe you never have either. Aptitude adoption effects are unchanged. This is the +1 leader trait option, leadership conditioning agenda. However, leadership conditioning agenda now grants 5% leader XP when started and 20% upon completion. This was 10% and 10%, so essentially initial bad, completion better. This is overall a buff, but only when completed pretty much. The Empire Needs You is now a -25% leader cost and +1 recruitable leader per class. This was just a -25% leader cost reduction, so +1 recruitable leaders per class is pretty nice. Psychological profiling now gives leader maximum negative traits of -1 and +1 leader capacity for each class. This used to be just -25% leader upkeep. Is this good or not? Well, if we keep that upkeep reduction elsewhere, which spoiler we do, this is pretty nice. More leader capacity for each class is actually pretty nice, especially early on. Healthcare program now gives 10% leader lifespan and -25% leader upkeep. This did give -1 leader maximum negative traits, which has moved to psychological profiling. We've gained the -25% leader upkeep, which is really strong actually. The unity can add up because as they level, they cost more leader upkeep, and the 10% lifespan is pretty nice. A percentage on top of flat numbers can be pretty strong. Specialist trailing. Now it gives 10% specialist or complex drone efficiency. It used to be +1 leader pool size. 10% specialist output, especially with all the nerfs, is actually a huge number. Maybe we would have laughed at that in 4.x, but in 4.3, 10% specialist? That's your scientists, your alloys, your consumer goods. It's really nice. That's probably going to get nerfed down to like 5%, I reckon. If not, you genuinely could just go this purely for that output. And honestly, reducing leader costs effectively gives you more unity too. So aptitude could be strong there. Champions of the Empire now gives +1 effective leader skill level. It used to give +1 leader starting traits. I like the starting traits because I like picking traits, but 1 effective leader skill level is really good because it essentially, when they're level 10, would make them level 11. And as you can see, leader stuff can be like sector governor effects where they give you more output for your sectors and planets, which is pretty nice. It can stack up. Aptitude finisher is now +1 leader starting traits, which used to be from Champions Empire, so we still keep that. It used to be +1 leader capacity for each class, which has been moved to the Empire Needs You. Overall, pretty strong buffs. Some things have been moved around. The specialist is pretty much the main thing that's added here that's really strong. It's not bad. Slaves in the slave market now cost trade rather than energy. Really nice change. Everything's been slowly transitioned to trade. Cybernetic Creed could now be egalitarian. The spiritualist faction can no longer cares about robots. Rejecting psionic heresy allows Mind Wardens access to the Shroud Inoculation living standard. I don't even know what that does. I think that's new. Let me know what it does in the comments. The appropriation tradition now also gives 25% automatic resettlement chance and has an appropriate flavor swap for egalitarians. boost. Appropriation was in adaptability, and it also gives minus 50% resettlement costs and 25% terraforming speed. So that's quite a hefty tradition pick there. Distinguished Admiralty now grants 20% command limit instead of a flat amount. Wow. This, of course, was the civic. And used to give just 20 command limit. 20% is crazy. It scales with you as it goes on, and obviously it's still going to give you commander starting level, commander experience game, and 10% ship fire rate. Pretty good, to be fair. Reduced the buffed in 4.3 command limit increase from Titans to match the actual size of Titans, so you end up with a nicer final number. That number is 80, which is double a battleship, which does feel nice. Increased naval cap repeatable tech to 20, and they've redesigned mutagenic spars to be less exploitable and to better match the theme of the civic. The spars no longer scale with the number of districts and provide pop growth or assembly. Rests in peace. So basically, the civic has been fundamentally changed, and I totally didn't abuse the civic many times. Oops. The civic now has all leaders, except for just all nodes, start with the substance abuser trait. If you don't know, this is a negative trait that reduces leader lifespan by 10 years at level 1, or if you were lucky to get level 2, minus 30 years. This building now provides minus 10% to both the habitability ceiling and floor of the planet they are constructed on. They provide 200 jobs and plus 3 effective leader level for the governor of the planet, if they are a substance abuser. You can't choose it by getting a leader of another species. The jobs increase the job efficiency of ruler strata, and they provide amenities. Oh my word. Rogue servitors have a special variant of mutagenic spars for their biotrophies instead of the normal machine lubrication basins. Okay, this combined with stuff that gets insane rulers can be really strong because you're giving more efficiency to them. Habitability being lowered is annoying, but you can try and counteract that, and getting 3 effective leader level is quite nice. It's definitely not as good an exponential as before, but it's a decent, interesting civic now. Crisis updates, just as endgame crisis power relative to difficulty setting. I don't know which way they've adjusted it. Tuned crisis strength scaling when allowing all endgame crisis to spawn. Reduced chance of Satana spawning while another crisis is active, so they'll probably be last if you don't defeat crisis. And the initial unbidden fleet is now stronger to help them survive unfortunate spawn choices. Oh, that's a bit annoying. They fix a bunch of bugs and there's a bunch of stability. Let's get into this week's changes. Improvement. They've renamed Mercantile and Unyielding to Commerce and Fortification to match the naming structure of all of the traditions. At least they've not changed them, but, well, anymore anyway. But that's going to be weird to get used to, and now it makes all my videos be like, where's Mercantile? If people are watching it in the past. No. Balance. More mutagenic spar balance. Spars now only grant substance abusers to the governor of a planet with the baths on. Oh, okay, so all your leaders don't get it, only ones you put on the planets. That's nice because your scientists who are surveying, or your admirals who are admiraling, don't get them. It's a buff. Spar attendance for worker co-op buff the Union Stewards. So just an interaction that wasn't accounted for. Non-corporate spar attendants now produce 500 amenities. It was 100. Corporate spar attendants now provide 2 trade. Another buff. Mutagenic spar counselors now increase the number of spar attendant jobs. This effect is amplified if they are a substance abuser. So the council position for that trait increases the number of jobs instead of giving job efficiency, which it's doing in the beta beforehand. And that gets amplified if they're abuser. I really like that, actually. Mutagenic spars can now be placed in research or unity district specializations. Bigger buff, more places to build. Increase the bonuses from food processing, mineral purification, and energy grid buildings. Why is that in mutagenic spars? I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding something. Yeah, I don't really know why it's saying that there. Experimental sentencing changes. Experimental chambers now provide a static number of experiment engineer jobs and a scaling number of test subject jobs, depending on the building tier. Number of test subjects jobs is increased by 50% on penal colonies. So when you upgrade it, you can't get more experimental engineers. Ah, that's sad. That's a nerf. Making them work better on penal colonies is really nice, though. Rebalance the amount of research experiment engineers produce per crime on the planet. The bug in which the modifiers consider the uncut crime on the colony has also been fixed, so you could go above 100%. That's funny. It's annoying they don't tell me what the rebalance is, but there we go. Consumer good upkeep of experiment engineers now also increases with crime. Boo. Orderlies no longer reduce housing requirements on the planet. Orderlies now increase the job efficiency of experiment engineers and test subjects, not their output. Nerfs for experimental sentencing. Sad. Half the effects on workers and slaves of the ruthless development trait. This is a destiny trait that gave 50% worker pop output and slave efficiency. So it's giving even 25% now. Nerf. Reduce happiness from social welfare. Nerfed. Reduce unity from civilians under social welfare. Oh no, because I abused that in the stream. No. A big nerf. Biomorphosis changes. Switched optimized neurology, purity flex 1, and heightened attributes, purity flex 2. Oh, they're changing like what order you can take things in to get the most out of them. Switch biochemical composure / regenerative cloning, flex 2, and artificial population, flex 3. Removed organic job efficiency bonuses from somatic subversiveness and artificial population. Oh, nerf. Optimized neurology now gives -1 leader maximum negative traits instead of 1 effective leader level. I think that's a nerf. Somatic subversiveness now grants an additional +1 effective leader level. Off there. Artificial population now provides -10% empire size from VAT grown pops. It used to be just normal pops, I believe. Why am I guessing? I could just look. I don't think it did any empire size reduction, so that's a buff to cloning there, or at least that pick of cloning. -10% empire size from pops from heightened attributes moved to imperfection remediation. Oh, so that's basically removed it from the job efficiency one and added it to the purging one, which no one really took. So there's a bit more incentive to go for the purging one because you get the -10% empire size. Starbase building off-world trading company now grants +4 trade per trade hub. Was 2. That's a big buff there. Why are they buffing Starbases? Starbases are so strong right now, especially early game. Starbase building hyperlane registrar now grants +2 trade per trade hub. Was a non-scaling +2, so it didn't do it per trade hub. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I never build those anymore since hyper relays and stuff. It adds the subspace amplification aura to the Starbase, -40% hyperlane and jump drive cooldown. That's pretty good too. Adopting partial virtuality by undergoing synthetic ascension as an organic liquefied or infernal species no longer grants -90% housing. I'm sorry guys, that's maybe my fault as well. The computation core focus policy now grants 2.5% job efficiency per 100 roboticists or identity designers instead of 0.5 per 100 civilians. It doesn't infinitely scale because you can't have infinite roboticists. Nerf. Adjusted scaling of event spawn pirate fleets to be more reasonable. That's nice. There's a bunch of bug fixes and performances again, and they plan on continuing to fix bugs and making balance adjustments for the next few weeks. The Cetus open beta has gone well enough that I'm leaning towards bringing it to the live branch sooner rather than later. If the factions and ethics changes go well, then I plan to release 4.3 Cetus in mid-March. If the changes cause major issues, we'll pull them from the build and I'll wait until 4.4. I don't want to drop a save breaking change during the post-release window. I'm extremely pleased with the amount and the quality of feedback we received from the Cetus open beta. The custodian team's jobs are nowhere near done yet. Currently thinking that I'd like to reopen the beta branch later on in the spring for 4.4 with continued balancing work and these slavery changes we've been planning once they're in a workable state. Yes, slavery needs a big overhaul because it's kind of The weekly Cetus streams are still on, so you can go bug the devs. And the next Stellaris dev diary will be on March the 12th, which might even be preliminary patch notes, meaning it could be released. Let's see. The 12th is a Thursday. They probably won't release it the Friday, potentially the 16th, 17th, or maybe the week after the 19th. So the week that looks the most likely for the release is the 16th. That is very exciting. If you enjoyed this video, go watch my essential mod list. Paradox, you can go watch it too so you can see what to add to the game because they're really essential to make the game better. Thank you. Bye.